Starting up a project is always an exciting time. There's so much happening, and it has to happen so fast. You almost can't catch your breath. This project was on a technical subject matter, how to fly helicopters. I'd never flown a helicopter before, much less piloted one, and sensor operators operating sensitive electronic equipment. So one of the big challenges was getting up to speed on the technology. One of the things that they hadn't taught me in school that I wish they had taught me was about different kinds of content and how to do an analysis of the subject matter. Because there were different kinds of subject matter in this training. And we were getting up to speed as quickly as we could, but we were treating the subject matter as if it was procedures and rules and facts that had to be memorized, when in fact it was a very complex skill that had to be learned. And we didn't analyze it appropriately. And so that one of the challenges was how to learn the content fast, and how to see in the content structures that even the subject matter experts didn't see. There were other projects that I worked on where, after I'd learned how to see into content that people have, it's a skill that you learn as a designer, by the way, how to see the constructs that exist in their subject matter. There were times when I could actually anticipate and ask questions where the subject matter expert would say, oh yeah, you know, that is a part of that is something that you have to learn in order to do this. One of the designer's biggest challenges at the beginning of a project is getting their minds around the subject matter and seeing the invisible structures inside. When training is bad, and as a designer, you get called in to replace somebody else's bad job, usually, or inadequate job. When training is bad, very often it's because the subject matter was misperceived. So that was one big challenge. Now, the other was just a matter of getting budgets completed and getting staff organized and getting them assigned to tasks, figuring out who's going to do what, making sure that one interesting process that I had to undertake was a challenge, and that was we created probably 400 or 500 different pieces, instructional pieces, actually elements, media elements, from videotapes down to individual handout lessons that had to be managed and configuration managed. And we had to have a way, as they were going through the development process, each piece that was created had to go through 7 or 8 stages, including the reviews and the paste-up artists and the Navy reviews and the subject matter, the designer reviews. Artwork had to be created, text had to be written, and so each piece had to go through a chain of events, managing one piece of instruction through that chain of events, and because there were things that were this kind of event, there were this kind of workbook, or maybe there was this kind of a slide sound presentation, or a videotape, or there were all different kinds of events going through this process, and we found that managing that was going to be a nightmare. And so one of the things that really saved us on this particular project was we devised a little system of, you'd normally have some kind of a checkoff that would go around with each package of material at each stage of development. Well, we devised a little system where each person, as it would get, say, to the artist, and it says, create the art for this segment, when they'd finished it, they would check it off and they'd put the date and the time, and then they'd clip that and put it into a box. Each day at the end of work, we were able to tell where every segment was, because it was going to be on somebody's desk. We were able to tell how much time they had worked on it and how fast things were moving through this pipeline, and which artists had free time, which artists had surplus, didn't have surplus but were being overworked and were falling behind. it was a stroke of luck, actually, that we discovered early on that we had to have this kind of a tracking system for all these little tiny pieces parts that had to go through the system. That was a lucky stroke.